What's going on? Welcome back, guys. Today we're going to look at conflict, specifically 4 different types of conflict that can take place in literature and how it helps progress the plot. Arguably, conflict is the most important part of the plot because that's why we're reading. So I'm going to do this in 4 different colors to help me organize my thoughts. If it works for you, you try it. If not, that's okay. All right, but let's jump right in. The first character, or the first plot, the first conflict we're going to look at is character. Number 1, character versus self. All right, character versus self. And in the character versus self, this is also known as internal conflict. All right, it's also known as internal conflict because it takes place within the character's mind. All right, so there's nothing that can be seen. There's nothing that can be touched. It's not really tangible. It just takes place inside the character's mind. And that's where all the conflict is. All right, it takes place inside the character's mind. Vocab word that you need to know, internal conflict. But internal conflict and character versus self are the same thing. And when you have a story that has character versus self conflict, you often see a character that is dealing with his or her own emotions or feelings. And so some examples of that could be, they could be in conflict over what's right and what's wrong, right versus wrong. You know, the wrong thing might make the character cool in the eyes of their friends, but it's not the right thing to do. So that could be a character versus self conflict. One I'm sure we've all had. 2 friends fighting with each other, and you have to take a side. So 2 friends that are arguing with one another, and they each want you to take their side, and each want you to tell them that they are right. That would be an example of character versus self, because the character is conflicted about which side to take. Do they agree with friend A? Do they agree with friend B? Or a character could have 2 potential solutions to a problem and is debating solution 1 versus solution 2. And there are more, but these are just 3 different examples of this type of conflict, a character versus self conflict, where the conflict, again, takes place within the character's brain. It can't really be seen, touched. It's just something that the character himself is dealing, him or herself, is dealing with inside or internally. So our second type of conflict is the most common one, and that is character versus character. Character versus character conflict, and it is important to know that this is the most common, But it is not the only type of conflict. It is, however, the most common type of conflict. But what's important to note is that it doesn't have to be a physical conflict. It doesn't have to be a physical conflict. It can be between two different ideas. So you could have two characters that are competing, maybe to be class president. And those two characters are competing to be class president. Or you could have they're competing to be the starting quarterback. And these are non-physical, or you have the physical idea, which is a fight. I mean, it doesn't have to be physical, but that if there is a physical altercation, then that is a character versus character conflict. So these, again, three different potential examples of character versus character conflict. We're going to move on to conflict type number 3, and that is character versus environment. Or nature. Character versus environment, or character versus nature. And this would be anything that is surrounding a conflict involving the character and anything surrounding them that's not another person. So this could be weather. Maybe a person is trapped in a thunderstorm. Right? That was horribly drawn. Maybe a person is trapped in a snowstorm. Easier to draw snowflakes. All right. It could be objects. A person's car breaks down, and that's a conflict. They're mad with the car. As illogical as that sounds sometimes, it happens. I've yelled at my car many times before. So maybe it died. All right. And so the car's dead. That would be conflict between the character and the car or an object. Animals. Maybe someone got bit by a dog and that created a conflict. Or events. Maybe the character wants to go somewhere, but there's an event that's stopping them from being able to go. But these would all be examples of environment or nature versus the character and the conflict that is there. Now, I do want to point out animals, because if the main character is an animal and they're in conflict with another animal, that is not character versus nature. That is character versus character, because it's two animals that are conflicting with one another. Now, if it's an animal, the main character is an animal and they come in conflict with another person, then that is character versus environment or nature. And that can get kind of confusing, but that's the best way that I know how to describe it. If the main character is an animal, Character versus character conflict would be two animals in conflict with one another. The last one, the fourth and final type of conflict is character versus society and community. All right, so character versus society, character versus community, and that is because both societies and communities have laws or codes of behavior that are kind of expected to be followed, right? So we all know laws, but like a code of behavior, for example. Why don't you leave your house without your clothes matching? Why do you take so much time to make sure your outfits look right? Well, because a code, that's a behavior code, something that is built into society or the community, is that your clothes match, your outfits look good, you wear certain things together, you don't wear certain colors together. Those are codes of behavior, right? So if a character is looking to avoid conflict, they follow these laws, they follow laws and behavior to avoid conflict. But if they want to change that, to change these laws or codes of behavior, they kind of have to start that conflict. If they don't like it and they want to change it, well, that's the beginning of your character versus society or community conflict. Now, what you have here are the 4 different types of conflict. 4 different types of conflict. Now, I discussed that character versus self is internal because you can't see it, right? You can't see a character in their own mind arguing with themselves. It's not visual. It's not something that everybody can look and see. So that's an internal conflict. But these 3 conflicts, character versus character, character versus nature, character versus society, you can see those. Those are visual to people outside. So if not being able to see the conflict is internal, then these 3 would be the opposite types of conflict, which are external conflicts. And these are conflicts that are visible and tangible and can be seen. We're going to stop here for today at just identifying these conflicts. You do have an assignment to complete on Canvas. Reach out to me if you have questions about these 4 types of conflict or about the assignment itself. And as always, have a great day.